Also on the Sydney Morning Herald, and it's also leading the West Australian, $1 million reward in search for Cleo. Over on the West, $1 million reward to find Cleo, revealed why the massive offer from authorities is so significant to the rescue hopes. I guess this is the story, Leisa, it's really dominated any conversation in Western Australia this week. A 4-year-old girl has been missing since Saturday. Authorities now believe she's been snatched from her parents' tent in a remote location 900 k's north of Perth. And her mum is consistently posting on social media asking, "My princess, where are you?" This is just another horrific story in what we've seen in WA over the past couple of weeks, where young children are either being disappeared or dying in accidents. Lise, this as a parent, you must feel this in your bones. It certainly makes my heart hurt.
Yeah, and listening to you, Jenna, and just following this coverage, it gave me chills. I've got chills right now because as a parent, it would absolutely be your worst nightmare, not knowing where your child was. You can't fathom what the mother and the parents are going, or the family, extended family, are going through right now. And the fact that the police went from the possibility of it was a missing child, bad enough, but then my understanding is that the way the zip in the tent was, where it was situated, where it was positioned, there was no way that as a 4-year-old, Chloe could have got it to the height, to reach it with the height that it was. So the fact that she's missing, the sleeping bag's gone, there was a sound of a screeching car, and the police now are effectively saying it's a murder investigation, moving on from a missing persons investigation. But imagine being the SES volunteers, those people who go out there and are so determined and comb through that landscape in the hope of finding something, but knowing that what you find just could be something you will never, ever forget in your life. Look, let's hope that by some miracle she's found alive, but...
If hopes are fading pretty fast. I think that the police have said that this evening. But you're so right. And SES volunteers, they are around the country. They're voluntary, and specifically in small communities, they probably even know who this person would be. So it's even more heartbreaking. So fingers crossed that if anyone does see anything, to call police on 131444, because it's just absolutely horrifying for the entire community. Over to the Australian now, and another talk about kids, schools risk next-gen security, says the headline. The Education Minister calls for a curriculum overhaul and warns students won't defend our country. The next generation of Australians will be unwilling to defend their country in a military crisis because schools are feeding students a negative view of its history and undermining confidence in liberal democracy, the Education Minister will warn in a major speech on Friday. Alan Tudge will push for more far-reaching changes to the draft national curriculum in a speech to the Centre for Independent Studies, including the treatment of history, which he warns could entrench ideological misgivings, such as referring to our most sacred day, Anzac Day, as a contested idea. Lisa, I guess the education curriculum and the national curriculum has been a point of contention ever since Tudge sort of took over the education portfolio. What do you make of this? Where do you land on the fact that we're kind of trying to make history to be a little bit gentler as opposed to what actually happened?
I know I've watched you, especially on Paul Murray, talk about this a number of times. I think everybody on Sky has discussed this at great length. And certainly from a parent's perspective, I think what we need to educate our children about is history in general. We can't be looking at it through some sort of biased lens. So you need to also, and I think the point he's going to make tomorrow is that we need to celebrate the fact that we are a liberal democracy, because if the kids are coming out of school and not understanding that and not appreciating that, why would they go and join the Army or the Navy and want to defend this country? So there is a lot of confusion, there's a lot of murky water at the moment, and in August last year, he sent them back and said, no, redraft this curriculum, because again, it's not doing the job that it should be doing. It's not teaching our kids what it should be teaching them. And what I like about what is in this speech tomorrow is he's also going to highlight the fact of let's get back to some basics. Let's start introducing times tables in year 3 instead of year 4. Let's start looking at phonetics. Let's start teaching them the maths, the English, the basics that they need, and give them a balanced view and a balanced understanding of what this country is about. And I think there will be a lot of parents around Australia tomorrow applauding the fact that he's taking a stand and finally saying what we are all thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, we may be able to, if we get the phonetics right and also our numeracy and numeracy levels higher, we'll be higher than Lithuania on the international tables, which would be really good. I'm so with you. And the fact that, I guess, why are we teaching primary school kids about things like climate change and, I guess, the brutal history of Australia when their little minds are probably just trying to get their heads around critical thought? Teach them the basics, like you say, times table, how to use a comma, for God's sake. That'd be great.
And Jenna, and I know, well, one, as someone who employs people, having people come through who actually know how to use some grammar would be fantastic. And second of all, I have sat around my own dining room table with my children and know what they're being taught at school. And then the conversations that we're having about, well, did you know this and did you know this and how about this fact? And it's just not being taught. So that needs to be changed.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely.